Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Tuesday, May 4th, 2021. And here is our top story. Is human resources being paralyzed by data and analytics? Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is Chris Moore. He's the Chief Executive Officer and I would say Chief Data Scientist for Zeroed In. Chris, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Glad to be here and share what we can about how human resources and other leaders can work with their data sets to really drive insights to make better workforce decisions, whether that's around retirement or other monetary factors that affect them.
Yeah. Look, this is an important topic. Everyone's talking about data, but I want to start. Is there paralysis by analysis? There's a lot of data out there in these systems, HRIS systems. They've been built out for, 10, 15, 20, sometimes 30 years. Do you find that HR executives have that paralysis by analysis?
Quite a bit. And there's a lot of factors that drive that. As you mentioned, some of these systems are legacy. Many of them are migrating to new systems. So there's disparate sets of data in each place. One of the challenges is bringing those all together. That's certainly where partners like Zeroed In come into play. But there's also analysis paralysis in really understanding what to measure, right? Sometimes people go after too much, right? In the case of measurement, sometimes less is more. There's different factors that they can look at to help ease the paralysis and really focus on a couple key areas. We like to think of volume and flow, and it really starts with your people, things like headcount and hires and rehires, transfers, separations, which lead to obviously turnover, voluntary, involuntary. And then shining the spotlight on timing and speed, right? How long does a particular state occur? How often does it occur? And ultimately, those measures, those volumes, the flows, the timing and speed create some impact, right, in the workforce. So looking at cause and effect, is it the flow and timing that's causing something? Is it management and culture or some other change that's causing some action or event or outcome, and whether that's or state related? So those are some key areas there.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, this it's important to have this data. And you talk about not biting off more than you can chew. And I guess from your point of view as a sophisticated data scientist and someone who's got a system, do you kind of break this down incrementally? And do you remind HR professionals that this is an opportunity for that seat at the table, right? Where corporate decisions are being made, HR, people analytics are an important part of those decisions because they represent not only human capital, but also personal finance. Or not personal finance, but financial, obligations and financial implications for the corporation.
Yeah, there's a couple points there. HR has been traditionally behind, finance and manufacturing and the other kind of drivers, real drivers of the business in getting insights and using that information to have a good conversation and answer not just what's happening, but why it's happening with the business, right? So they need to understand, and then the next question that the CEO is going to ask is, okay, that's happening. Why is it happening? And there's some unknowns there. So, being able to really tease out the why, and that takes details. You have to have details. You have to really have the skill sets and the resources that can get into those data, understand the relationship and correlations between those different measures, right? The volumes, flows, timing, speed, and see what's affecting what. And, there's correlation analysis that can help there, but also machine learning and artificial intelligence. At Zeroed In, we use a technology called Explainable AI, which allows us to really understand in a predictive model what's leading to that prediction. What are the leading factors that's producing some classification or some probability score? And that answers the why.
Yeah. Chris, I guess it all starts with good data. And I guess it could be overwhelming. You probably have scrubbed a lot of data in your time, whether it's employee identification number, dates of birth, to make sure that you're calculating ages correctly. Maybe it's compensation over a period of time. How important, in terms of this analysis and paralysis or paralysis by analysis,
right,
how important is that data scrubbing?
Well, it's one of the things that kind of worsens or exacerbates the whole issue. It slows people down from getting good measurements, because HR data, at its core, is traditionally dirty. There's multiple input feeds. Things coming from applicant tracking and recruiting websites, HR generalists typing data into their legacy or their now state-of-the-art system, depending on where they are in their life cycle. So a lot of it's manually input, and that causes leaders to think, is my data good enough, right? Should we wait? Do we have to go through this scrubbing process? And there are cases where some of that has to occur, but they don't have to do it on their own. A vendor like a Zeroed In, who lives in HR data on a daily basis, and has systems that really manufacture and present all these measures, does all that data cleanup for them. It validates the dates. It identifies anomalies, things that are out of range. So in turn, they can go back and fix them in their transactional systems, so that it's kind of one and done fix.
Yeah, you want to avoid that garbage in, garbage out that I guess I was taught as a computer programmer. Chris, we're going to go to a quick break in a second, but maybe 30 seconds. Are HR departments becoming more analytical departments where you actually see IT embedded in HR?
There are. So there's a role, an HR analyst. I wouldn't say that all organizations have them, and those HR analysts kind of have somewhat of a statistical background, perhaps more of a data-driven or IT background, but with a focus on HR. So, IT and HR haven't always had the best relationship. So IT's busy, working with sales and working with these really, drivers of the business, and not so much the cost centers like HR, but that's changing.
Yeah,
and they're
that's
adapting.
Important.
So HR itself is adapting itself with some of its own tools, some of its own internal resources to get what they need, because they can't fall behind.
Well, thanks, Chris. I want to take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more about HR paralysis by analysis and implementing more data in HR decision making. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. We're talking to Christopher Moore of Zeroed In. Chris, thanks so much as always for staying with us this morning.
Great to be here.
So we spent a lot of time talking about the why you need data analytics, the paralysis by analysis, but I would talk a little bit about human beings and our we don't want to be vulnerable. You know, we don't like change.
Right.
We don't want to be vulnerable either as individuals, personally or professionally. Where does vulnerability play a role in this HR decision-making process around data?
Great. So yeah, it's that kind of that second factor that can worsen analysis paralysis. You know, you noted that humans by nature many times fear vulnerability, right? In order to measure, and you have to expose some of your weaknesses, right? And many times, whether it's inexperienced or it's just the way leaders were brought up, is that they fear that, and as a result, they don't want to share their metrics or they're afraid of what they might find.
Yep.
And for many reasons, they may think they're going to be fired, right? Or they're going to get demoted if there's something glaring. But in reality, vulnerability can be the birthplace for creativity and innovation, right? It's that, thinking outside the box, right? When something negative happens, that really can inspire leaders to make a change for the positive. So there's a great TED talk by a woman named Brene Brown about vulnerability and the human factor and how it plays into work and leadership. So I encourage some of your listeners to go out and search that.
Yeah, and in terms of what you do professionally and you and your team do, I mean, a lot of it seems analytical. A lot of it seems data driven, right? It's what I said at the end of the first segment: garbage in, garbage out. If you get bad data, it's not going to translate into great analytics. You got to make sure your data is clean. But I would imagine that you've got to coach up a little bit, right? You got to alleviate to the feeling of vulnerability. You're meeting a client for the first time. You're in a boardroom with a group of clients. It's about making them feel like, hey, this is going to get them in the right direction. You almost have to be in a way a psychologist to kind of get people kind of on board. Hopefully they're on board when they have selected you as a vendor, but to get them on board long term, because there are probably people who are kind of new to the process and want to feel like they're not losing control.
Yeah, and it also leads back to what I stated about understanding not just what happened, but why it happened. Because when a leader's in the boardroom and they're talking with an executive or their CEO, and that CEO asks why, that's where they have that vulnerability when they don't have the answer. So by ensuring them that technologies like Zeroed In and others can really get to the root cause, that's what drives change. And HR is all about transformation and change and improving things. So we like to link that cause and effect to the monetary outcome, because a monetary outcome, whether it's the cost of turnover, the cost of hiring, the cost of doing nothing, that ultimately will drive the business case, right? And that will allow them to build a business case for change and point to the the dollars that will fix it, right? That will pay for it.
Chris, what about, there's vulnerability to change or fear of vulnerability and fear of change. But what about acting? Corporations get this data. You got to act, right? You got to be prepared as a CEO, a CFO, a COO, CHRO. You go through this whole C-suite. You got to be prepared as an organization to act upon the data that you're given. Not place trust and faith in the data. That's paralysis by analysis too, I would think.
Yeah, a lot of people will act on a gut decision, right? And that works at times, but I hate to be a broken record, but you have to understand, again, why something is happening and that root cause so that you can act appropriately the first time, right? There is a concept of fail fast. So you can if you don't always know the why, you can make a quick decision, right? But you have to fail fast so you can change quickly. You just can't go down this road and risk that it wasn't the right path without the right without having all of the details behind it.
Yeah.
So that's part of going back to the why and able to drive some action. I use the analogy all the time. Okay, so you step on the scale and you step on it every morning after you get out of the shower and you look at it and okay, so it's up, it's down. What are you going to do? What action are you going to take today to get that measurement in the direction that you want it to go? Because measurement without action is nothing.
Just measurement. It's just presenting you with the facts. And I guess the last question here, Chris. It used to be in organizations that it was very hierarchical, right? Monolithic. There's a top-down approach. Are you finding when it comes to data analytics, making change and acting change, it actually comes from the bottom, the middle, and the top? Because an organization that is just top-down, top-driven, look, it gets it done, but you got to have the firm belief of everybody in order to make it a much smoother transition, whether you're changing, implementing a data analysis tool, implementing changes as a result of data analysis, et cetera.
Yeah, so you're right. It's happening all around us, and in organizations today, of course, they've always measured things like spans and layers, right? How deep is the organization? How wide is a particular organization? For a variety of reasons. You can't overload a single manager with too many people, or an organization that's too wide without having the proper depth underneath them. But in addition to that, you're seeing the onset of technologies and concepts such as organizational network analysis, which really shows the relationship between not just individuals, but the organization as a whole and how they interact. So a lot of that drives decision-making. It affects decision-making, and everybody in that decision-making change is either a beneficiary or a victim.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Well, hopefully they're more beneficiary than they are victim.
Yeah.
Christopher, we're going to have to leave it there. Always a pleasure checking in with you. Love what you're doing at Zeroed In, and we'll check back with you again very soon. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, then drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, so much more, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Don't forget, we're back again tomorrow. So until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a tax doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.